Before the crack era put names like Freeway Ricky Ross, Monster Cody Scott, and Waterhead Bo Bennett in the annals of gangster lore, before the Crips and Bloods ruled LA's street, one man was already running the game. His name, Thomas Tootie Reese, the original Godfather of the black underworld in Los Angeles. When you mention drugs, you heard Tootie's name, an LA narcotics detective once said. He was the kingpin, especially in the 50s and 60s. Everybody was working for Tootie Reese. This is the story of the man who laid the foundation for LA's drug empire and the fall that followed. Tootie Reese started making his name in the streets at a time when heroin and marijuana dominated the black drug trade. He quickly rose to prominence, controlling a large portion of LA's narcotics market. By the 60s, Reese had built an empire, one that stretched from South Central to Hollywood's elite. It's said that Reese was one of the first to introduce freebasing in 1976, and some even claim that he was the one who got Richard Pryor hooked. Even Freeway Ricky Ross, the man who would later define LA's crack era, admitted, "Tootie was a guy I wanted to be like." At one time, Tootie was the talk of the town in the streets. He was like a hero before he turned into my competition. By the late 70s, heroin's grip was loosening. Cocaine was the new drug of choice, a luxury high for the wealthy. And once again, Tootie was in position to capitalize. But Reese wasn't just pushing powder, he was perfecting it. According to Reese himself, his first introduction to crack cocaine came in 1976 during a trip to the Bay Area. A friend of his had learned from chemistry students at Cal Berkeley how to turn powder cocaine into crack, a more potent, smokable form of the drug. And with that discovery, Tootie Reese unknowingly helped set the stage for the crack epidemic that would consume LA in the 80s. As the 1980s hit, the drug game changed, and not in Tootie's favor. The Colombian cartels were flooding the streets with tons of cocaine. Where Reese had once been king, young hustlers were now moving 40 kilos at a time. Tootie was the man in the 60s and 70s, an LA detective said. But once the 80s hit and these gangs hooked up with the dope, Tootie was nothing anymore. The Black Godfather was now playing a game he couldn't win. In 1983, the DEA finally caught up with Tootie. He met undercover agents at an LA cafe where he boasted about his connections and offered high-quality cocaine for $48,000 per kilo. During one deal, Reese sold 2 kilos to undercover officers for $50,000. That was all the evidence the feds needed. During one deal, when Reese was arrested, he was driving a Rolls Royce. He claimed to own millions in property, and prosecutors called him the most well-known black drug dealer in LA. In 1984, Reese was convicted of conspiracy to distribute cocaine and sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. With Tootie out of the picture, the streets erupted into chaos. The new wave of dealers, young, ruthless, and heavily armed, took over. Tootie was a dinosaur, an investigator said. By the mid-80s, the game was bigger, uglier, and more violent than ever before. After serving years behind bars, Reese's conviction was eventually reduced. He was released, but he never returned to the spotlight. Tootie has been low-key ever since he got out, an LA Crip says. But that's a story that should have been on American Gangster. He was the man before Freeway Rick, before Waterhead Bo, before Harry-O. Tootie Reese was the real OG.